Great to see you again and welcome back, everyone. I'm Vladislav Novikov, and today I'm joined Yuri Rashkin, host of the YouTube channel Rashkin Report and a local elected official in the state of Wisconsin. Yuri, really glad to have you with us again.
Thanks for having me.
So, Trump has once again delayed the new tariff, this time until August 1st. It looked like a pressure move to push other countries into trade concessions. But the talks aren't dragging, and there is still no real breakthrough with China. That leaves U.S. campaigns unsure how to plan imports, and every day Americans may end up paying more in stores. Bottom line, loud promises aren't the same as a real reform. Trade policy isn't a show, it's a tough game. Would not you agree?
It would be easy to agree, but we see that this is the president that likes to fire his advisors because he doesn't like to be surrounded with people in the room that might think that they know more than the president does. It's a loyalty test more than expertise showcase. And when it comes to trade wars, it's important to acknowledge that all of the deadlines are entirely arbitrary. B, that we're getting nowhere near the success rate that President Trump promised us. There's no 90 deals in 90 days. Now he's sending out blackmail letters to people and calls that a deal. It's not a good way to run policy. It's not a good way to run trade. It's not a good way to run a country. At the same time, when we see him going back and forth on aid to Ukraine, we see that this is a president and a person who is very unstable and can be easily influenced, at least to say one thing or another, if not actually to do one thing or another, because there seems to be a big disconnect between saying things and then doing things. But President Trump's popularity has suffered a blow following his declaration of liberation, or whatever it was called, on April 2nd, and it never recovered. Because the economy is something that really affects every American much more than even foreign policy, because those are, what's going to be on the shelf in the store. Are we going to have the same things from China we're used to having, or are we not? And of course, this is a delayed test because this is business planning. So we're talking about things like back to school sales, which means late August, September. And we're talking about Christmas, which is October, November, December in the United States. You may not have heard. It's a huge 3, 4, 6, 12-month celebration. If we're going to see shortages at that point, it might not matter to us what is the status of negotiations at this point. Has it been 2 weeks yet or not yet, or 15th 2-week stretch, or what? Because when consumers in a consumer economy will show up to consume and consuming is not available, consumers will be pissed. And I think that that's something that President Trump should understand instinctively himself as a lifelong consumer. I think that his desire to fight with China was a very short-sighted idea in the first place, but once again highlights to what extent he doesn't think about yesterday or tomorrow, but really just today. He thinks that today he's going to make this threat. Countries are not going to respond, and then next day they're going to, of course, come to him, and of course they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and everything will be great. Not thinking that there will be consequences. Putin isn't even willing to meet with him. Xi isn't willing to meet with Trump. He's showing himself to be a very unreliable trade partner for our allies, at whom he is free to drop F-bombs. That's our new secret weapon, is F-bombs dropped by president. He can drop it on different countries, but not on Russia. All right. But he can't drop it on China either, because he realizes that he's got a tough cookie there, tough partner who is not willing to go along just because Trump said so, because, I guess, China is not Vietnam. Vietnam made a deal with the United States, which I think involves a Trump Tower there somewhere in a golf course. So that's the tariff story that we're seeing. If you would like to come out well out of your tariff problems, you should have some Trump buildings in your country, and a golf course never hurts.
And you know, the 80 days pause in the US trade war, they're almost over. What's next for the global economy?
What's next for global economy? That's a little bit outside of my area of expertise, but from what I see, chaos, because that's what we get with Trump is chaos, and we're going to see rerouting of world trade because world order is changing, and the United States is no longer looking to be the leader of this world, and we're going to be shifting, seeing all sorts of shifts, and NATO is not really the organization that it was designed to be because of the United States failing to show that it will live up to its expectations and obligations in a way that is respected by our not just allies, but our adversaries. And our adversaries are not respecting this administration, which means we're going to have chaos. We're going to have things that are happening that Trump is going to say are horrible, terrible things. But let's not cast blame too fast, which is what he's saying now that there's a giant catastrophe in Texas, where he's saying, oh, we're going to take care of those people, but let's not cast blame too much around. So as always with Trump, if things go awry, like when he turned off weapons to Ukraine spigot for the third time since he became president, it's always fault of Secretary Hegseth. But if this would have been a decision that somehow worked out, it would have been the deserving, all thanks to old great President Trump, because he would be the one who would be delivering the solutions. It's a very performative type of governance, kind of a Potemkin village type of thing, which is not going to lead to good results the longer it goes on, because the authoritarianism and corruption are showcased every day by how successful is Russia and Russian economy, which is corrupt, which is totalitarian at this point, practically, as we see just a few companies that are basically on government dole and that are government-controlled corporations. That's not a recipe for success. But so the world economy is going to depend on whether it's going to be more democratic or more authoritarian. If it's going to be more authoritarian, it's going to be poorer. And if it's going to be democratic, it's going to be more creative and give more people more opportunities, because that's what democracy is all about.
Mm-hmm. And one more complex topic, Zelensky approved NSDC sanction against Chinese campaigns whose parts were found in Russian drones. But we also know that US-made chips have been found in Russian missiles. So why are sanctions only targeting China?
There's two problems here. First of all, that we have effectively dissolved our oversight of sanctions, and therefore we're not really following through on sanctions, and I think companies are starting to catch on to that fact, because if there's a law but it's not being enforced, is there really a law for people that are looking to violate it if there's no consequence? So that's why I think we see American chips in Russian weapons. And this is where it's a moral dilemma as much as a political and a legal one, because corporations, and I hear this from people who work at these corporations, who are very disturbed because they feel like this may be something that people can get away with, but it's not something that they feel is the right thing to do. And they're going, like, how do you stop this? And it feels sometimes like moral outrage is one way to get things addressed. Is kind of like what we experienced with the stop of weapons to Ukraine. When there's outrage, things occur. But in this case, we see that sanctions are not really being enforced. People that are supposed to be in charge of that are not there. And new sanctions are really not coming into place. That's the other problem. Because when we have President of the United States who came up with this arbitrary circus-like tariffs for every country in the world, practically, except for Russia, and even Ukraine got put tariffs on, which only highlights to what extent he, A, doesn't know what's happening, B, doesn't care what's happening, and C, is trying to help Putin. So I think that this is a really big problem for the United States that we really are struggling with, because it is continuously, consistently easier for us to admit and to say that our president is a buffoon, that he is a joker, he doesn't know what he is doing, he's a fool, he's an idiot. Dementia is a popular explanation for what Trump is doing. But to imagine that our president is a traitor to the country and is doing things that he's clearly, just as his latest or the one and only legislative accomplishment, the big, beautiful, I want to say big, black, beautiful, whatever, is passed. It shows that there's no concern for the country. This is just a set of lobbying interests that are just trying to get their piece of the pie, and in that situation, there is no policy. There is no trying to accomplish anything. This is just everybody trying to, this is grifting on some level. And those are really strong words, because those are really big problems that need to be addressed. And currently, United States is showing that we continue to be dysfunctional. We continue to be a country that can say we are against a war in Ukraine and against Russian aggression, and at the same time see that American chips are found in Russian weapons. Yes, some will say this is just pure capitalism, but this kind of pure capitalism leads to authoritarianism, which is going to lead to a country being poor. So this fake capitalism is really just getting people poor over time, as is proven by totalitarian, authoritarian states such as Hungary and North Korea and others, where if you have a dictator that cannot be replaced over time, the economy goes to crap. That's capitalism? I don't think so.
So, lately Trump has started to shift his tone on aid to Ukraine. Should we take it seriously? I mean, we are talking about Trump after all.
We are talking about Trump after all, and it's hard to believe him. He's done and said so many different things that he can tell us, what time it is, and people will be suspicious. Because he will say, well, yes, maybe that's the time it's going to be in 2 weeks. I don't know. So that's one concern. And that's something that I see very clearly on my channel with my work that I do in Russian language in Ukrainian info space, where Ukrainians are just not believing this. They don't trust Trump. The trust has been broken and destroyed. And it's going to take a lot of work to rebuild that trust. And that trust starts with good words, which we saw from Pentagon, from the spokesman or whatever, Sean Parnell, who sounds like a comedian from Saturday Night Live, who announced that we're restoring weapons to Ukraine. And that's all consistent with America First policy. So he had to make sure to add it in there that we are still just as isolationist as we ever were, but now we're going to be helping Ukraine. What? That seems like it's a contradictory term, because this is not what Tucker Carlson would want. And if he isn't America First and American isolationist these days, who is? So I welcome announcement from Pentagon. I welcome the announcement from President Trump that he is now going to be supporting and sending weapons to Ukraine. Of course, this is weapons that were approved by Biden, and it would be nice if we saw some new weapons approved by Trump. But I welcome all of it, and I just say, now let's see it. I would like to see actions following words. And if there are going to be actions, then we have to admit this is a huge victory for Ukraine, and it's a huge victory for Ukraine's allies all over the world through the pressure that we are applying to this administration every day, and it buckles under pressure from different directions all the time. So it's important to provide pressure on this administration, while at the same time remembering that, of course, Netanyahu has already nominated Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. But I think that Trump's chances will be far greater if Vladimir Zelensky nominates Trump for Nobel Peace Prize instead of just the Nobel's Peace Prize, Peace Duke, as the Russian speakers tend to joke.
Yeah, yeah. And now to the latest news. Peskov claims Trump's move to send weapons to Ukraine undermines peace. But doesn't this mean Russia is officially killing the talks?
Say that again. What did Peskov say?
Uh, yes, Peskov say they undermines peace. Peskov say Trump wanna give Ukraine.
Oh, Trump is undermining peace.
Yeah, yeah. U.S. want give Ukraine more weapon, and it's a bad idea.
And therefore, Russia is not going to be part of these negotiations now?
Um, they say about they don't like it.
It's clearly they don't like it, and it's clear that any time that we see any movement anywhere to help Ukraine, Russia is going to say that this is going against peace, because I think they consider peace to be what I would call a cemetery. Cemetery is very peaceful in Russian sense, and that's not a peace that Ukraine wants or needs. And I think that that's why these statements, when we see these, that's why we see these contradictory statements about starting World War III, where Putin will say, or Peskov will say, that this is going against peace efforts, this is starting World War III, while we know that really helping Ukraine is pushing off World War III, because defeating the evil that is in Kremlin is really such a huge root of terrorist activity all over the world. And if we just concentrate on helping Ukraine now, there will be peace breaking out all over the place when there's no Putin, if there's no FSB, if there's no Russian propaganda. Can you imagine what a happier world this would be?
Okay, it's been more than a month since the second round of peace talks. In your view, is there still a chance for a third round, or is it just not going to happen?
You see, I think that we need to acknowledge that these peace talks have always been done in order to pacify Donald Trump. Because Russia is not interested in peace talks and peace deal, and Ukraine is not interested in this peace deal, which really just means surrender and capitulation for Ukraine. So why were these talks in the first place? They were there because Donald Trump said that he is a deal maker, excuse me, pardon my language, and he's going to, this is what it takes, and so he insists. So to kind of humor the old man, everybody is pretending to be at negotiations. Of course, Ukraine, before negotiations, will unveil Operation Spiderweb as a way to show Russians what opinion Ukraine has about this negotiation process and the power that Ukraine has at the negotiation table. Well, why not? That seems like one good way to approach negotiations with terrorists, frankly, on their own terms. And this is something that's strength. We always talked about this, how Russia understands strength. Well, there you go. Operation Spiderweb. Ukraine shows its strength. And does Russia want many more negotiations after the last Spiderweb? Well, I can see where they can be less motivated to meet again, because who knows out of what suitcase, what drone will fly out and who it will attack. So then you go, why are the negotiations in the first place? For Trump. Well, and what about now? If Trump is sending weapons again to Ukraine, or saying that he's sending, because so far he hasn't done anything, so he's saying that he's going to be resuming, the pause is going to be over. Let's hope it occurs. Then what? Does Russia care about what Trump thinks, or do they no longer care because he violated their demands and their agreements, and now they're upset at Trump? I don't think so. I think they're going to be upset at Trump, but they're going to be reasonably upset at Trump, because it's easier to be kind of upset at Trump and try to get back at him in some other way than to actually fight with him and to set up an open confrontation between Russia and the United States. Not worth it. So I think that whether Russia shows up at a negotiation table is an indication to what extent they care about what Donald Trump thinks. And I think that they still care about what good old Donald thinks. And so I think that we're going to see negotiations. On the other hand, if Trump is convinced that Putin is not interested in peace talks, and this is not going to lead to anything, because no matter what Trump does, and Trump already did everything that that Putin asked for, except for defrost Russian money and remove sanctions off Russia, but he already even stopped military aid to Ukraine. Come on, Putin, come on. But Putin is not willing to stop because he wants what he wants. He wants Ukraine. And all these bizarre statements about business projects and money-making opportunities. Putin has more money than, I don't know, he gets money from every transaction in Russia practically. He's got a lot of money. He needs power. And in this approach, well, then if Putin is not going to change his mind, and Trump is just going to be helping Ukraine until Putin agrees to sit down at the negotiation table, then tells me that that's now the new setting that we're going to be in for some period of time, and that would be a sign if Russia doesn't show up at the negotiations. If Russia doesn't show up, that really means that they don't feel like they need to get Trump's get on his good side at this moment, either because they're not afraid of being on his bad side, or because they just can't be there and it's becoming obvious. Either way, all of this is a dead end, because the real solutions at this moment are lying on the front, and thanks to Ukraine's armed forces, VSU, that is holding off Russian troops. The negotiations are a time-stretching ploy that we can use as a kind of a series of flags to determine which is the strength level of different players involved, but it is not currently any sort of a vehicle to actually end this war.
Mm-hmm. And one more, Netanyahu has nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Isn't it a bit too soon?
It's never too soon to nominate Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. I think that, I think that Vladimir Zelensky is missing a valuable opportunity, or maybe this is something that he is telling Donald Trump, because I do insist that with the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, the recommendation of Vladimir Zelensky is going to carry a lot more weight than recommendation from Bibi Netanyahu this day and age. It's almost like if, I don't know, your recommendation letter is written by, I don't know, some horrible person in history, and you would like to get a peace prize with that recommendation letter. That's not really a good recommendation. So I think that's more of a trolling. And another way to highlight to what extent Israeli Prime Minister is willing to suck up to Trump. This is the third visit of Netanyahu to White House since the second coming of Trump. He's been there more than any other leader. They don't trust each other, but they've built a political partnership, and Netanyahu is using it skillfully. But at the same time, we also see a story come out that says that Israel is under the impression that should Iran give a reason to be attacked again because they are doing something with their nuclear program, Israel believes, or Israeli government believes, that American government will support them. And it's, so now we're going to be testing that theory out. So on one hand, Israel maybe is planning to, or looking at a possibility of attacking Iran again, but at the same time, they're offering Trump a Nobel Peace Prize nomination. It's almost like they're trying to dangle this carrot in front of him while they're trying to do something with their other hand. It's a reasonably skillful political manipulation for 2025. That's all you have to do. So I think that Vladimir Zelensky can, I don't know. I mean, there's horrible things that can be done to please horrible people, so let's not go there. But Nobel Peace Prize, I think, is certainly a worthy reward for ending war between Russia and Ukraine. And I think Nobel Peace Prize Committee would be thrilled if there was peace, because some old politician wanted their recognition. I think that highlights how high a peace prize is. Although when Netanyahu talks about it, he kind of devalues it altogether. But I think that's the pandering and brown nosing, and there's new levels that we're plumbing, new depth, I guess, not height, depth, new depth that we're plumbing every day with this president. And if we keep going, we just might hit North Korea.
I think Zelensky did better than Netanyahu. He signed a deal on rare earth metals.
There you go. But I think Israel has built a long-standing political relationship with the conservatives in the United States, both through financing and also through close relationship with evangelicals. And so they feel they don't even need rare earth.
Yeah. So thank you, Yuri. Always a pleasure to hear your thoughts. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.